Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Squawk Talk on Socialist Telly. I'm Steve from Squawk Box. I'm delighted to be joined tonight by my panel, and I do apologise to everybody that we're 3 minutes late starting. The attempt to send the broadcast live failed, so we had to restart the programme. But I'm delighted to be joined this evening by three ex-chairs now from Newham Labour Party in the London Borough of Newham. Who have in the last week resigned their, not just their positions, but their entire party membership in disgust at the way that the right-wing regime is conducting itself on various fronts. And I also have Bonnie here from our Socialist Telly crew to join us. And so Tahir, Mirza, we've got Carel, Buxton, and Trish O'Hara. Tahir and Carel were East and West Ham chairs, respectively, of their CLPs, and Trish was the Newham branch chair, and have all sent their letters of resignation in protest at what's going on. So I'm going to let you guys talk about that rather than me, and give people the lowdown on what's going on. So, Carel, will you lead off and just give us a bit of background on how this all happened? How long has it been brewing? What's the background to it, and what was sickened you off with with the way that Keir Starmer has conducted himself as leader and his henchmen with him?
Yeah, I'm from formerly the chair of West Ham CLP, and in March last year, our CLP was suspended on the same day that East Ham CLP was suspended, and that was 5,500 members silenced, disenfranchised, all in one fell swoop. I think that it was clear that the London region were unhappy with the way we were recruiting people, the way that we were, strong activists in the community. We were part of strikes, workers' struggle, and we're very much embedded in the grassroots. And they wanted to make sure that they got their people in standing as councillors in the forthcoming May elections. So they didn't want people like us there. So they suspended us. And it was, that was the beginning really of my huge doubts about Keir Starmer's leadership and the direction that the party was going. So it'd been brewing for a while. But for me, the final straw really was seeing Christian Wakeford cross the House and sit behind Keir Starmer. He's welcomed in the Labour Party, which I believe breaks all the rules, because I thought that if you had stood for another party, you were disbarred from being a Labour Party a member even, let alone an MP, for 5 years. So you had that really grotesque sight of a Tory MP being hailed and cheered as a Labour MP, and Jeremy Corbyn not a member of the Labour Party. And I just think the whole direction that the Labour Party is taking has been unfair. He's broken his pledges that he made when he was elected leader, and I don't think that Labour Party stands for social justice now, let alone socialism. So that's my reasons.
As I understand it, and I mean I covered this way back at the time, the excuse that the party gave for the suspension of the borough's Labour parties was suspicion of electoral fraud. 4 months after the Met Police had investigated that and said there was nothing to investigate and nothing to take further, which makes it pretty much a naked kind of ploy by the party, really, to just to maneuver people out of the way so they can get the people in that they want, I guess. Trish, give us your build up to this, please.
Right. Okay. I suppose possibly I'm more naive than the other two on the panel. I didn't join the Labour Party until 2014, 2015, in a wave of excitement that it was a socialist party. And I joined thinking that, well, I moved into Newham not long after, about 5 years ago, and I joined the party a little bit before. So about 5 years ago, I moved into Newham, and I was really excited because I come from an area where it was mostly Tories who were in local government. I thought I'm moving back to East London, where it's going to be 100% Labour council. I'm going to be amongst Labour people, and I'm going to join local politics, and I'm going to be really excited to be part of a big Labour movement. And I'm afraid that's not what I found when I got here at all, and I was really surprised. And I've kind of put a lot of my feelings about that to bed, thinking, well, you have to keep going because, you know, the worst Labour government is better than the best Tory, you know, all of those sayings. And I voted Blair even when, you know, with Clause 4, even though he wanted to sell schools off, even though, you know, you've got all the people involved in the, you know, Milburn and the NHS for profit, all the different things that happened through the 90s, and all the time that I thought, well, I'm still going to hold my nose and vote Labour because it's still better. And now, it's been from the inside out, I kind of thought, my gosh, so many people in the Labour Party aren't Labour. And that's what shocked me. And naively, I've kind of had to come to terms with the fact that I was a branch chair with great enthusiasm to a group of people I thought were all going to be at least left of centre. And Newham really needs a real voice. And the truth is, whilst we were running and functioning and not suspended, at least we could continue to hear that voice, even though it was from people that I didn't necessarily identify with in the council, as it were. Certainly the people coming to meetings, a lot of which absolutely are local to my area. And I was very excited to make sure that everyone got included and heard. It felt like a good machine, you know, grassroots. People could speak. They would say their piece. There would be motions. We'd vote on them. They'd go to I also was in the GC. They got mentioned at the GC. They were voted on. It was all very fair. Carel was my chair at the GC. So it was all really carefully done above board. It was all very careful that everything was voted with 3 tillers. I really liked that. I really liked the kind of machine, if you like. And I liked that then that would be sent. We'd be able to send our voice collectively as best we could with democratic elections off to conference, and that would be voted on, and composite motions. I really learnt it and really believed it was exciting, and I kind of saw it all fall apart, I think. And not because there was any problems before we were suspended, but we got suspended and everyone's voice in Newham got closed down, and at the same time as COVID, where people already felt isolated. And I think a lot has happened. And my high street, I used to live in other parts of East London before I moved to Newham, because I particularly wanted to live in Forest Gate because I love the high road and I love the kind of sense of community and everything. I love Newham, full stop. And I've just watched, under the sort of guise of COVID and suspension, I've watched really the government, local council, hand everything over what looks to me like developers. I feel that there's terrible class cleansing going on here. I think it's shocking, and I think it's shocking what we're losing. We're losing our local community spaces. They've been closed down or attempted to be. We've lost a 100-year-old tree. We're getting all sorts of things happening, and perhaps talk about that a bit more later. But generally I left because of the disillusionment. I couldn't justify being suspended and asked to campaign while you're suspended, asked to get on with things, not campaign in local issues, but campaign for the mayor.
Yeah.
You know, it's just shocking. I just think we've been treated very badly. I don't think I left the Labour Party. I think the Labour Party left me. A bit like Mary Black in Scotland. We lost people like her too.
Tahir, let me bring you in then. Tell us your experience so far.
Yeah, I mean, second time when I joined the Labour Party in 2008, and since then I was holding the various positions in the Labour Party. It was very, very hard decision. Reason being is I used to love Labour Party to my core. I donated in money-wise to those CLPs who are not being funded properly in the last general election. We have taken 16, 17 cars to all different CLPs all over UK for campaigning. We were very famous doing all these things, and I used to love every moment because I know that we was working for the socialist government to come in, and that was the energy we was getting it. And that was a completely different feeling. That is why it was very, very hard decision. And plus, as soon as these things happen, as the Carel just said that we had the letter, I feel personally that we're being denied for everything. Because that's what they've been doing in the last council election. Before that as well, the CLP was suspended, and the same thing happened back again. What surprises me is that I'm sure the Carel done the same thing. Before we had the suspension, we suspect that there is a surge of membership anyway, a little bit. It usually happens anyway. Whenever the leader changes or whenever the election come along, membership goes up and down. We wrote several emails to London regions, several emails, and I'm sure Carel will second me on that.
Yeah.
They haven't responded us anything whatsoever. Reason being is they was waiting for the right moment when they actually suspend us and actually have their own people for by-elections or whatever it is. They know that by-election was coming in Central Ward. They know that. They don't want actually democratic process to take place. And that was the first thing which is really, really this time annoyed me. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, as soon as the current leader came along there, we noticed that is the Labour Party stand nothing except for purge of uh, the purge of expelling all the socialist people in the party, all the socialists. And that was the another issue which is actually really hurting me, really, really hurt me. And then lately you have already seen that they continue expel Jeremy Corbyn from the PLP. They haven't reinstated the whip to him, which is again, it shows us that we are not democratic, neither socialist anymore. So whatever says behind the card, we are not doing it. So we are not the Labour Party anymore because we can't carry that card says that we're socialist and democratic. And that's the nationally thing I am very, very annoyed at. Even today, you perhaps see that debate. Sir Keir Starmer, actually, quotation was is from Margaret Thatcher. Can you believe that? He couldn't find any socialist to give this quotation. He used Margaret Thatcher. And I remember that. Every time he speaks to the media, he says, yes, I support government. I think it's hundreds of times. So do we really have opposition? Ask ourselves. And this is to PLP. You are not really opposition. You are the second side of the same coin as Tories. There's no difference whatsoever. I mean, these are the main thing. And this is the first time I ever agree with Boris Johnson when he said when Sir Keir Starmer was a public prosecutor, he should actually take action against Jimmy Savile, which he didn't. So that's the first time ever I actually support Boris Johnson, but he said that, which is very hard for me to say that, but that's the truth. That's what it is. So these are the few reasons there, but they are national reasons. But the local reasons is unbelievable how we've been treated in Newham personally. I mean, can you believe that since the Labour Party took over this borough for a number of years, 30, 40 years, whatever, God knows, we become poorest and poorest every year. And we're the poorest borough. And that's what the history now. And when I see those things, I said, oh my God, are we really Labour? With the 60 council Labour? We supposed to have socialist policies? We are not. Last 3 years, what surprises me is last 3 years, 3 times the council tax gone up. 3 times, for God's sake, when we are living in a poverty in Newham. And this is, I mean, because reason we are saying, me and Carel and Trish knows that, because we are activists. We are living in people. We go to the people. We actually do the picket lines. We go to academization. I think Carel perhaps light on academization and all that. But we actually do whatever we can. We know that. Even recently, we being charged double for emission charge as well, and the ULEZ as well. So it means is that we are paying £12.50 to the London mayor and emission charge to the local Newham council as well. Come on, you can't do that. You can't actually deny people's right.
Yeah.
Making them more poorer and poorer. And that's what it is. Newham residents actually being treated as a cash cow. That's what they're doing. They're milking the money from us. And recently, in the Guardian newspaper, you probably know that, the London Borough of Newham, top UK parking fine table. And they charge Newham Labour and Newham people there £10.6 million within 11 months. And do you know what? They actually, one councillor said that, luckily, they are not UK and not Newham residents on a social media. Come on, they are the human being as well who paying you the money. You're treating the cash cows. An important thing is, the last thing which is I want to say before I give it to you back. Look, they under the Keir Starmer, Sir Keir Starmer, there's a new terms and conditions now to staying in the Labour Party. And I don't want to tick that box. I'll tell you what that is. You have to be Islamophobic if you want to stay in. You have to be racist if you want to stay in. This is my thing. And you're not supposed to be socialist, and you're not supposed to be democratic. And these are the terms and conditions I don't want to take. So
no, I agree with Tahir. I don't want to take that path either. I think that the council here, for a long time, have been passing on cuts. I don't think they're alone in that, and I accept that the last 11, 12 years of having a Conservative government, they've cut funding to local government right across the country. I understand that. But where is the fight back? You know, this West Ham is where Keir Hardie was elected as the Labour MP out in 1892. We've not had a Conservative councillor in Newham. I mean, Newham was only formed in 1964 of the amalgamation of two different boroughs, East Ham and West Ham. But it's only in 1974 was the last time I think we had a Tory here. You know, they are relying on the ordinary people of the borough to just elect them, whatever they do. But they're not standing up for the people anymore. That's locally, that's what's happening, but that's also echoed in what's happening nationally. We don't see any fight back. So I was I'm retired now, but I was a primary head teacher, and I was a head teacher in Newham and in Redbridge. And the union, the NEU, of which I'm a member, was asking for proper ventilation, for masks, etc. And you know, where was the Labour Party in supporting that? They weren't anywhere. They've not stopped the privatisation of that's going on in the health service. I mean, we are seeing a dismantling of the welfare state, and we need a strong Labour Party that stands up for the people of this country. And I think now we've got a Tory party Mark II in the Labour Party. Starmer's making the Labour Party acceptable to the ruling class, to capitalism. And it's possible that people will become so disillusioned with what is happening nationally with, you know, a liar for a prime minister, that they may say, well, we don't want the Tories anymore. And it's possible Keir Starmer will become prime minister. I mean, that is a possibility that could happen. But what would he do? He won't stop the oppression of protesters. You know, he's got a very bad track record on democracy and on freedom of speech and on people being allowed to have their say. He criticises the Prime Minister for the Grey Report, but where's the Ford Report, Mr. Starmer? Where's the Ford Report? Yeah, we want it. We want it. I just feel that the Labour Party is going through a protracted split, and we're not splitting from Labour.
Yeah.
The PLP, the so-called Labour councillors that are passing Tory cuts on us, they've split from us. We haven't split. We are the Labour Party, the heart and soul of Labour. We're the socialists in the Labour Party, and we're not going away. We're fighting, and we will keep on fighting till we win.
It's a great point about the Ford inquiry. I mean, Ajaz had just sent that in there on the comments as well. The hypocrisy of that, but I mean, you know, the hypocrisy that's gone through the Labour right. I mean, the whole time that Jeremy Corbyn was leader, they whined and moaned the whole time about, oh, they're trying to drive out our MPs, and they're trying to, you know, all these hardworking MPs, they want to deselect them, and you know, it's bullying and oppression, and you know, they're targeting us and all this, and it was a load of crap. But it was wishful thinking on their part, because as soon as they got in, that's exactly what they've done. But they, you know, and I wouldn't begrudge them it so much if they hadn't whined about it the whole way through the Corbyn tenure, to try to smear the party as if we were targeting them. And yeah, people wanted deselections of MPs that were obviously not really in line with proper Labour values, etc. But that's fair enough. But you know, the values at the moment, as Tahir said, seem to be, you know, rampant Islamophobia, a horror of socialism, a desire not to say anything that's going to upset the Tory apple cart, etc. And it's just this. It just is this. Him going on about anything that Boris Johnson doesn't do, and he's been that bad, Keir Starmer, in almost every case where he says something. Johnson could just point back at him and go, "Well, what have you done? You've done exactly the same. You've done worse." He was accusing the Labour front bench of being drug takers today as well, and I don't know if there's any truth in that as well. But personally, it wouldn't surprise me.
I wanted to jump in if I could.
I'm
not getting feedback now. I've tried to sort out my sound.
No,
Apologies.
that's all good.
But I wanted to say there was a couple of things that really were stark for me. And the first one was that I really thought about, and I had to think really hard, is where did Keir Starmer come from? He's been in Parliament 5 years before he became leader of the party. I think that's unheard of in the Labour Party. I think it happens in the Tory party because business could be like Sunak. People arrive in the Tory party. They don't arrive in the Labour Party. You kind of have to prove yourself through, it seems, whereas Starmer came from nowhere, from the DPP. Suddenly he was leader of the Labour Party from nowhere. And when he did arrive, I sort of tried to look at him because I didn't know who he was. And he's the only member of Parliament that I know of. And I think it's true to say that's a member of the Trilateral Commission, which I'm worried about too. And his reputation within the DPP wasn't great, and how he dealt with Jimmy Savile information, and how he dealt with information around Julian Assange. There were loads of things that weren't in line with me, but still, even though I didn't want him, although our Labour MP, Lynn Brown, she wanted, when we had our special meeting about leadership, she wanted Keir Starmer. Pretty much all of the rest of us wanted Bergen or somebody similar. Some people wanted Angela Rayner, and some people, of course, wanted Rebecca Long-Bailey. So there was an obvious kind of choice. We won that vote. We won the vote. The truth is that was chaired by Carel, sitting there, very beautifully chaired. But Lynn got up, our MP, having the whole room really pretty much been won over towards the left candidates, and said, "I want Keir Starmer." And I was like, blimey, that came out of nowhere. She was a Jeremy Corbyn woman when it suited her, and then suddenly the switch came, and I thought, wow, that's how politics works. Our MP, who I really thought a lot of, suddenly I saw, and I haven't seen her since she wanted Keir Starmer. I haven't seen hide nor hair of her. A bit like the rest of the councillors, we haven't seen hide nor hair of them. And what I worked out is that the left, or the socialists in the party, I'm not sure the left is the right term, just the socialists in the party, they're really busy running food banks, one of which Mahmoud Mirza, who was nearly on the NEC and suspended days before he got voted in, he's running the biggest food bank in the borough, hugely brilliant food bank. There are people like Carel's running a uniform swap. All of the socialists are doing something to protect Durning Hall, to protect the City Farm, the Stratford Circus, which is a community group and community hub, not a circus, and other really big things that they're involved in. All the socialists, all the pickets, they're really busy, while the non-socialists, shall I call them, in the party, they're busy becoming councillors. They're busy going on committees and getting extra money. I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it out loud. I think Newham's always had a problem with how it's run. Looking back over it and hearing how Newham has worked, is the mayor has a way too much power, just like the mayor before. There's been no change, a change of outfit. She's gone from trousers to a skirt. There is no change in what's going on in Newham, and unfortunately, I was a bit blinded to that for the first few years, trying to think, well, these are good people, these are Newham people, and sort of trusting everyone, and then slowly but surely being let down and realising I'm all right, Jack. I've got a job, I've got food in my belly, and I've got somewhere to live. I rent in Newham, and I've got somewhere to live, and aren't I lucky? But there's lots of people in Newham who are really struggling, and the councillors and the MPs, and I can only really talk about one on my side, West Ham, and that's Lynn Brown. I don't see them doing anything for the local people in Newham except handing over all of the land to developers. I don't understand what it is they think they're doing. And then when you ask them, which I do regularly, letters, and when I try and converse with them, because of course we can't hold them to account because we're suspended. So there's been no meetings, no opportunity to say, why are you letting this happen? But when we could ask them that, they would always say their hands were tied. They're on the committee. They're not allowed to talk about it. They have to remain neutral. That was their favourite answer to everything. I've got to remain neutral. We've got one councillor who's a great local councillor. She loves plants, but she's not very interested in the 4 lanes of traffic that are coming in on the Silvertown Tunnel. She puts out a plant pot and shuts a road. Great. I like roads quiet because I'm lucky enough to live on the nice roads. I don't live in Silvertown. Nor does she, where there's going to be 4 lanes of traffic coming in. Have I seen her on any of those demos? Have I, hell? I've never seen hide nor hair of her. But she remains neutral in a lovely way, with a lovely smile. She does and says absolutely nothing. And for all the people that have been invited by people local to us to come and listen to me this evening, yes, I don't hide behind a moustache. I don't hide behind any Twitter impersonal account. I'm happy to declare exactly who I am. And for all of you that want to talk to me about that, please, you're very welcome. Any time on the street that you see me, come and talk to me about it. Trouble is, every time I see you, you run.
Yeah, they do. They literally run.
I think it's interesting. It's interesting as well. I mean, the motivation seems pretty transparently in all that's been done to members in Newham to get right-wing candidates in on council positions, etc. And yet, in a lot of parts of the country, including some bits of London and even in places like Liverpool, they are struggling now to get people in, to just come forward to stand as candidates, because I think they're getting the shock just how much of everything was getting done by the left in the party, whether that's getting out in the streets and door knocking, whether that's the kind of other organisational things, and being prepared to stand as candidates. People wanted to stand because they heard stuff that they believed in and actual values and actual policies that were worth standing up for. Now it's I think there's just this prevailing sense of embarrassment at the idea of standing up and saying you're going to be a Labour candidate, because it implies that you're in agreement with the way that the party's going on, and people don't want to be seen as being in agreement with the way the party's going on. And now they're casting around, and I think one of the reasons that they accepted this Wakefield character in is because they're just desperate for something they can portray as good news, because the Tories are tumbling in the polls, so it makes Keir Starmer look a little bit better by comparison. But remember, we were told if anybody with Corbyn in, and you'd be 20 points ahead. And now we have a far worse government than anything that Corbyn faced, with a leader whose party is sharpening the knives, ready to get rid of him by the looks of it. And Keir Starmer is actually losing ground now and falling back to level. And as soon as they replace Boris Johnson with somebody who can at least pretend to be competent, then he's going to be dumped again, because people want Tory, they'll go for the full fat version. And if they want change, they're not going to go for Keir Starmer.
Tish, you've forgotten one thing as well. Life expectancy after the Silvertown Tunnel, by the way. This is going to go down a lot. Because somebody just asked me why he's paying the emission charge when his life expectancy, rather than going up, is going down because of Silvertown Tunnel. And I don't have any answer to be a Labour. I feel actually very shy to actually face people when I used to hold the Labour Party card, and that's what the Labour Party doing locally. And that's what been happening to us. And one door, I remember that, I door knocked there, and the gentleman actually shut the door on me, and he said, "You're one of them." I said, "What happened?" He said, "You are from the racist party, aren't you?" I said, "Which one?" I was thinking of him probably talking about the Tory. Because now Labour, that's what your leader said, that's what your leader said. And look at the bullying culture in Newham, Islamophobic culture in Newham. You have seen the tweet, you have seen how they react. Even though as soon as I resigned, somebody tweeted full of Islamophobic and hate views. That's what the Keir Starmer, that's what they suit to Keir Starmer to stay in the party. And that's what is happening in Newham. Even though if you see around the London at the moment, because I talk to a lot of the peoples, particularly, I'm sorry to say that, live on a telly, particularly this has been going on against Pakistanis and Muslims. In Greenwich, the lady councillor who was a councillor, Muslim, Pakistani, being denied. In Waltham Forest, 3 Pakistani being denied. Ealing in Southall, exactly councils was denied. In fact, there's another one, I think, in I think Redbridge, but I'm not sure whether he's Pakistani or not. He's being denied. That's what the purge is all about. Take them out. This is called purge. And it's not the purge just against a Muslim, any socialist. They want to keep us shut our voices, but we can't. We have to be loud. We have to be in the public. We have to go out. And that's what the activism all about. That's why we joined the Labour Party. But I'm afraid they failed us. They completely failed us, particularly after this leadership. And that's what the problem is.
Well, the question just in from Jack M there, who says, how many more pledges will Keir Starmer violate? I don't think he's got any left. That's the sad truth. I think he's done the full set now. So where else is he going to go? And his pledge to kind of bring unity to the party was the first one in the bin, really, wasn't it? Because I don't think he ever even made a pretend attempt to do that. He just instantly went full on to try to purge. Bonnie, go ahead. We haven't heard from you.
In on the race issue.
Welcome back, by the way. Bonnie's been having some tech troubles.
He's had to turn the laptop off and start again. So sorry about that. I just wanted to say very briefly, over the weekend, obviously, was the anniversary of Bloody Sunday. And on top of alienating the Muslim Pakistani membership and activist base, Keir managed to actually offend so many people have been hurt by Starmer talking about things unfolding in Derry 50 years ago. They did not unfold. He has therefore sanctioned military action that saw the loss of life of several people that was avoidable, entirely ordered by the British state. It wasn't an unfolding. It was a massacre, and it needed to be recognised as such. And the British role in that activity ought to have been seen. So it seems like Keir has got carte blanche to alienate members from every section of society. At the same time as him saying that, obviously Jeremy Corbyn was over there as a guest speaker giving a speech about how important it was that we remembered the atrocity.
A rousing welcome as well.
Indeed. But I also wanted to say thank you to you guys in Newham. I've come over. I've been invited several times to come over and speak with your members as a guest. I know that Tahir particularly and his team have travelled all over the country campaigning in key target seats. He came to help me in 2 general elections, which was really, really vital, really well appreciated. And I just feel like the party is going to be in a much poorer place without activists, because it is the activists on the left that knock the doors, that make the phone calls, that pay for the leaflets, that deliver the leaflets, that basically do all the work that the party requires. And they're just, not being treated. It's not that you're not being treated with respect. It's that every socialist activist is being treated with the utmost disrespect. And I think we have to look at what this is going to result in the elections in London in May for the councils. It may have been touched previously when I was offline before, so sorry about it if I'm repeating what's been said. A lot of London boroughs are really struggling to find a slate of candidates. If they can't find candidates, I'm really not sure where they're going to find the activists to go out and do the foot soldier work.
Well, and it doesn't, they want to try and look like a government in waiting, but they can't get people to stand for them. And, they can't manage their finances. They can't keep a promise. They can't, they've got no particular competence. They get themselves hacked with a big data breach. The Tories are going to have an absolute field day at the next election, because all they do is put a bunch of posters up, showing Labour data breach. How can you trust them on national security? Labour nearly bankrupt. How can you trust them on with your finances, etc., etc. It's a piece of cake. They've handed this, whenever the next election is, and however bad they be in the Tories, frankly, they've handed the next election to them on the plate, because they've just made all the propaganda ready-made and just handed it over on a platter and said, here you go, ribbon on that, and you're ready to go at the next election.
Yeah. I was just checking the Sir Keir Starmer's 10 pledges. And this made me really, really laugh. The last one, the 10th one, effective opposition to the Tories. Really? This is a laughable. Sorry, Steve.
I've just taken a swig of my coffee there, and it very nearly went all over my keyboard.
Now I know that why he put in number 10th. Why not number 1? So now I know that.
I will give Keir Starmer one thing. He did once oppose Boris Johnson when Johnson wasn't quick enough to reopen the schools during the pandemic, and then Keir Starmer went out with his famous no ifs, no buts. He's got to get the schools open in September without fail, and I won't stand for any less. It was the nearest he's ever come to actually opposing on the one thing that most sensible people would think, for for God's sake, shut up and don't, don't push him on that,
130 children have died of COVID in England alone.
Yeah.
And so, of course, schools should have been opened, but we should have had a plan, and the NEU had a plan. But I don't think that the Labour PLP, I don't think they talk to union leaders in the way that they should do, and listen to head teachers and have a good set of ideas about how they could have gone forward. I mean, I think that your point, Steve, about incompetence at national level, with data breach, with losing members, with the inability to control their own finances, to lose, for example, loads of money from Unite, to force the disaffiliation of the Bakers Union for the way they treated their union leader Ian Hodson. They're losing lots of credibility, and that's root and branch. That is what's happening locally as well. They are an incompetent Newham Council as a council. 100% Labour are an incompetent council, and you see it when you walk through the streets. There's litter everywhere. I know there's COVID. I know that COVID has hurt, but having an army of street cleaners, the mayor had phoned me up. I could have organised it for her in a week. I mean, I wasn't a head teacher of nearly 800 kids for 25 years without being able to organise stuff. They can't organise the basics, and people are losing confidence in them at a local level. So we had a decision to make when they said that we were suspended. I mean, I think we were initially a bit, oh my gosh, this has really happened. What we're going to do? For a few days, we were like, but in a daze, I think. And then we decided that we weren't going to take it. We were going to keep together as a group. So, we continue as a group of socialists to organise, to support strikes, to be on picket lines, and to be absolutely embedded in our community. And as Trish said, Mahmood runs a food bank, it regularly feeds for 150 people every Saturday. Other comrades in our group do similar work. That's our solidarity work. It's not charity. We don't do charity. We do solidarity because they're our people. But we also do all the campaigning, and I think people have said what those campaigns are. But the biggies, like the Silvertown Tunnel, that is a Labour mayor inflicting more pollution on our children in our schools. There's a huge bunch of schools around there. Sadiq Khan's moved into the Crystal building. We know where you are, Mr. Khan. You're going to be right by the tunnel. Don't breathe in, because you'll get a great bit. Oh no, but he'll go in his armoured car, won't he? I mean, he's got a flash car that cost £500,000. I mean, it's so disgusting. It's so disgusting, and we just won't let socialist ideas die. So, people have put in the chat, how do you fight back? Well, our group continues. There's quite a lot of us. We can mobilise a lot of people. We have regular. Every Saturday we're out on street stalls. We've got leaflets, we've got banners. Everybody knows us in the community. We're not a party. We're just continuing a socialist movement. That's what we're doing.
Steve, can I use this platform to actually tell people in Newham anyway? Join us if you want actually socialist movement to carry on. Join us and fight back. That's more important. And to the unions, stop funding directly to the Labour Party. Those funding need to go to the needy people really straight away, because Labour Party is going corrupt to the core now. So don't waste our money to those Labour Party PLP at the moment. Give to where the money needed. Give them to the socialist ideas where they need to be, the schools and all these people there. Food banks. Come to our food banks and you see that 450 people actually staying in a queue every Saturday. That's what the money needed. That's where the food needed, because people in Newham need a roof on their head, which is this council is denying them, and the food on their table. That's two things we are very, very important. And this summer, I'm very worried about this summer this winter as well, really, because I know that somebody asked me whether within that money she can put the heating on or she can feed the actually children. That's what she said. Because my particular ward, where the 50 below the poverty level, 50% kids are facing these things. 50%. It's a lot of people there, a lot of kids there. So we are in terrible position in Newham, really. As soon as you come off from the North Circle Road, it seems like that you enter in a third world country somewhere. No, it doesn't look Newham, really. But at the same time, you have to smile it, because camera is taking your photo to send you fine. And that's what is happening.
Can I come in though and say Newham is a fantastic borough as well? Absolutely wonderful, great people. But I hear what
people are brilliant.
Saying the people are fantastic, and I really love living in Newham. It's a really wonderful place to live. But I will say that the streets are getting dirtier and dirtier, unbelievably. You can't miss that. They've now started charging for large pickup of large, when you want to put your rubbish out and you've got a large piece, you now have to pay for that. You also, another way that the council have decided to exclude people, I'm shocked, because we're in an area of real diverse sort of need and lots of high need for different reasons. Poverty and need go together, as we know. And they've now decided you can't have visitors passes in paper. You have to do that online. What about all the people in Newham who don't have access to the internet? And there's a lot of them. What about people with dementia or learning disabilities, or English as an additional or learning language? What about minoritized groups, of which there are many in Newham, who don't have access to a computer, who are now potentially not going to get visitors? I struggled to get my visitors pass online because it's quite complicated. They make everything complicated online. Getting your rubbish picked up, it's all difficult. It's almost like an exclusion. But what I am seeing in Newham, whilst, by the way, Keir Starmer has regularly said, we must remember that he supports the government. Even while people were dying in care homes, he supported the government. Loudly and clearly on the news, 3 or 4 times a week, I support the government as people were dying in care homes. I think we should be very worried about that man. He's not a wooden stick with no plan. I think he's got a very strong plan. And I think he's a really frightening man. I don't like him at all. But when we think about what's going on in Newham, the fact that people can't even get maybe visitors passes easily, they can't necessarily afford to come into Newham to live at all, even though it's a really poor area, is we've got flats going up by the 20 dozen. They're nearly all empty. Think of Stratford. Stratford is like, what's the biggest shopping centre, I think, in England now? It's Westfield in Stratford. Newham. Are you kidding? I don't even walk through it. I go round it. It makes me feel so sick. I still go to the old shopping centre where the people of Newham shop. Yeah, because
there's a comment just come in there from Heather saying we're also here in need in the North and South Yorkshire. Is this just for London? Well, I mean, this is the last bit of the show really that we're going to run out on is national issues, because Newham is an example of what's being done by the Labour right around the country and what's not being done by the Labour right around the country, which is oppose and resist really. So let's talk NHS for a minute, because I know Bonnie in her part of London is seeing the sharp end of what the Tories are doing, but also the lack of real vision and any different from Labour. And we've seen Keir Starmer over the last weeks and months consistently say he's against, having promised he was going to put everything back into public ownership. He's now consistently saying he's against renationalising anything, and his health spokespeople are going out and telling the media that they want to see more of the private sector working in the NHS, etc., which is the exact opposite of what was promised, and the exact opposite of what people were campaigning and voting for when they supported the Corbyn government, because properly renationalising the NHS was one of his headline promises, really. So, Bonnie, let's give us 2 minutes on your situation there.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
obviously, again, those Northerners like me who are watching this, do bear in mind, this is only, these are examples that you won't have to look very far in your own backyard to find the same thing.
I think, thanks, Steve, on the issue of the NHS, I think it told a tale when I stood up at conference just gone and proposed a motion that was agreed by the delegates, unanimously voted for, that we would strip out the privateers in the NHS so that we can protect it going forward. Instead, what we've got now is an agreement or a suggestion that Labour will bring in more private companies and private interests in the NHS, the opposite of what we need, which will take a lot more money than providing the services in-house. What we've got in London is a situation in Southwest London where we will be left with one hospital to serve the whole of Southwest London effectively. So we actually put through London, and I'm sorry, I know I'm talking London again, but this will also apply in exactly the same way in every area across the whole of England. We actually put a motion in through London Region Conference to urge Sadiq Khan to make a stand to keep the hospitals open. There is a growing population across the whole of London, and we are seeing beds being taken out. The number of beds per 100,000 people in London is lower than it is in most countries around the world, forget around the rest of the UK. And it's, the NHS should be our proudest achievement. And what we're seeing now is we've seen complete inaction from Sadiq Khan stopping it. It was interesting listening to you about the Silvertown Tunnel. Locally to us, and also in Edmonton now, there are incinerators to burn rubbish, greenhouse gases and everything else. Where are Labour on this? The green policies were really, really important. Where are the policies on that? We need to be looking at what kind of society we actually want to live in. And this is, as I say, it goes right across the whole country. We're seeing cuts in funding for public transport, the railways, Transport for London, all of those things. Now, these are all measures that we need to spend more money on if we are going to do anything like reach the carbon emission targets that we've got set. Everyone was full of warm words at COP26 in Glasgow a couple of months back. And all of a sudden, all of that's been taken away. Where is the opposition? Where are the promises to look after ordinary people? We're not hearing any of that. All we're hearing is, well, your CLP can't discuss what's wrong with the Labour Party. People go to meetings to try and sort things out, and it's incredibly frustrating because our hands are tied.
Let me just say, in case anybody thinks that's getting too London centric. I mean, in Liverpool, where I live, we've got a hospital that was built on private finance by Carel, I think it was, who then went bust. That all went belly up, let's use a polite phrase, and still hasn't been put right. And Keir Starmer wants more of that. We saw situations, in the last few weeks in the winter in the northwest. And I'm sure in the northeast, no different, where people, old people had fallen and broken a hip and were waiting 15 hours for an ambulance to get there. We are seeing the gutting of the National Health Service. It's being sliced and diced and given away to Tory backers under cover of these so-called accountable care organisations or integrated care systems or whatever the hell they're calling them these days. And the Labour Party is nodding along with that and talking exactly the same story.
This is
just claiming they'll do it a bit more efficiently or put a bit more money in. It's not about that. If you're going to put more money in and it's going straight into private profits, which in a large cases it is, you can put as much money in as you want. It's not going to get the job done. Every penny that goes in private profits is not going on patient care.
We're looking at a government that wants to
National Health Service has got to be best value. Simple as that.
We're looking at a government that wants to leave us with 42 hospitals across the whole of England. Already, there are not enough hospitals. Even in the middle of a pandemic, we are talking about hospital beds being taken away. At the same time as them putting emergency tents in hospital car parks to cope with people that are dying of coronavirus, they're talking about closing services across the whole of England. Yeah. And it is something that the Labour Party really should be kicking out an absolute stink up about. But instead, as with the schools must reopen, no ifs nor buts, we've got a front bench that are quite happy to nod along to the current Tory plans. And obviously, it's not the first formation of a Labour government or a Labour opposition, if we can use that term very loosely, that has supported the privatisation of the NHS. Obviously, a lot of the damage was done under Tony Blair's government. And a lot of people have struggled a lot to come back to Labour after the destruction of our public services under the Blair government. So what we saw under Jeremy, where he grew the largest political party in Europe, was we saw a lot of people come to the party to see, actually, the party now under Jeremy has got the same values as I have. They're fighting for the same things that I need to see. That's why there was so much excitement and enthusiasm for the programme that Jeremy was offering. To move away from it now seems the most ludicrous thing to do. And, you know, we would be really in the lead if Jeremy was still leader, but far from being leader, former leaders are knighted and given all sorts of gongs. And what happens to Jeremy, the one who infused millions of people? He gets told, well, you can be in our party, but you can't be in the parliamentary party. It's so wrong, and it's so damaging to everything that we're trying to achieve as a movement.
But that's why we've got to keep these ideas alive. I mean, I think, you know, with you, Bonnie, I agree that, I mean, Corbyn made such a huge difference. I was a member of the Labour Party before Corbyn became leader, and he changed the whole political landscape. He gave people hope. I mean, I remember trying to get into that first meeting in Islington, and people, young people, literally holding on to the walls to look through the windows to try and hear him speak. And I've never ever witnessed anything like that before. But what do? We can't let those ideas die. So how do we fight back? So what we're trying to do in Newham is to work with like-minded socialists. We've set up Newham Socialist Labour. As I said, it's not a party, we're just a group of people. And we'll work with everybody and anybody who is socialist ideas. So the way you fight in the health service, I mean, Unite, the workers were out on strike at St Bart's today, at the London Hospital, at Whipps Cross, I think maybe Newham General as well. They're going to be out on strike. How do you win? You win through the unions, I think now. Things are moving on to the industrial plane. This week, announced today, we've had a real victory against the privatisation. Same thing they're doing in hospitals. They've done it in schools through academisation, but we had a victory against the academisation of one of our sixth form colleges, Newvic. Solidarity with anybody in the NEU who was on strike at Newvic, 102 people on 12 days of continuous strike action. Absolutely brilliant. And they fought it back. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to fight back through the unions, fight back through grassroots campaigning, and build a movement. Because we've got two Tory parties now. It's a bit like America with the Republicans and the Democrats. Starmer is going to complete Blair's transformation and the split. And we've got to get people and work with others and get them together. We've got to look to shadow CLPs, socialist groups to join together and say, this is the alternative. Get into the councils. Yeah, and some direct action. I know someone put that in the chat. There will have to be direct action. We're going to have to do that. We know. We'll have to learn from the youth on that, because old girls like me don't know really how to do it. But I'm going to be learning, because we all learn from each other.
Yeah, just coming back to the Newham, really, by the way, you cannot have minor alignment form anymore in Newham. So if your child is sick, you cannot go to the chemist and get a minor alignment form. And I'm not sure that's what happened in the whole London, but that's what the Newham is all about, I think. This health issue is run by the local government, which is the Newham itself, I believe. I may be wrong here, but that's what it is. But you are absolutely right. I don't know whether somebody's seen that we own it letter to the Keir Starmer when they said 84% want NHS fully public ownership. Did somebody seen that letter to the Keir Starmer by the We Own It? They put it down, all the details here, how much percentage going to be there. It's amazing. But no wonder he watered down his own promises. He don't care about this.
Well, on that note, I think we'll wind it up, because we've got 2 minutes left, and I don't think anything that's going to be said now is going to only take 2 minutes. I will just mention there, somebody dropped in a comment at the end about getting Laura Pidcock on the show. We are in the process of working out dates with Laura so that she can get on there along with other people who will be no doubt very northern. So that'll balance it up, and we'll end up with the London viewers complaining that we're being too northern centric or something probably. So thank you ever so much for watching, everybody.
Thank
you. We appreciate your time. Do share this program. Do share the links to Socialist Telly on its social media platforms, and enjoy the rest of the week. And keep an eye out for the rest of the Socialist Telly comment that will be coming your way very soon. Really appreciate
all the work
this.
you do in your community there, Newham.
Solidarity, everybody there in Newham and up and down the country. Take care.
Check us out on Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
Oh, quickly then, tell us the link.
Twitter is at Newham Socialist, Facebook.com Newham Socialist Labour.
Very good. Keep an eye out for that. And if you didn't catch it, then wind the video back a bit. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Good night.